Hello there, and thanks for downloading the Farming Today podcast from BBC Radio 4. I'm Kaz Graham, and in this edition, why developers of small-scale hydroelectric power feel they've had the plug pulled, and a victory for abattoirs as the High Court rules the Food Standards Agency has overcharged them for safety and hygiene checks.
The FSA have said that they accept that the charges for last year should be quashed, so we're very hopeful that slaughterhouses will be receiving quite a lot of money back.
More on that a little later. But we're kicking off in the uplands. All week we've been hearing about the current challenges facing upland farmers right across the UK and how they're dealing with them. Farming in the hills can be an isolated, even lonely business, but a group of farmers scattered across the uplands of Shropshire have joined forces to pool ideas. The Upper Onny Farmers Group was formed by the Shropshire Hills National Landscape as a way of swapping ideas and getting the best access to funding. The farmers involved say it's increased their profits as well as benefiting the environment. Bob Hockenhull reports.
I'm up in the Shropshire Hills with Lizzie Holton-Harrop, who rears pedigree Aberdeen Angus cows. She's one of 30 upland farmers in the area who've joined forces to swap ideas, attract funding and farm environmentally for the benefit of the whole area.
We've been part of the Upper Onny Farmers Group for the last 4 or 5 years, and that's been a great organisation to work with. It's completely farmer-led, and that gives us a platform to be able to propose ideas to external organisations. So we've worked with Seven Rivers Trust, who have done farm water audits for everybody in the group who wanted to have one done. That was funded by the Farming and Protected Landscapes programme, and then anyone that wanted to go ahead with that and implement their recommendations, they would then organise the contractors. They would find external funding for all the work, which I believe was Environment Agency, to put in ponds, scrapes on the land or leaky dams. So it's a big benefit as the farmer because you have very little involvement. You don't have to put the money forward and claim it back or really do any paperwork. They manage all of that for you.
So what sort of a difference has it made to the farm?
Yeah, so we've put in, I don't know how many ponds and scrapes, I think nearly one in every field. They're designed to hold, in heavy rainfall, they'll hold back a lot of the water. So instead of it all careering across the field straight into a nearby stream and then affecting flooding lower down, it will hold the water back and also provide water for our livestock. So it's making our farm more resilient.
And do you think because you work as part of a cluster that helps attract funding?
Yeah, I think it would be hard work as an individual farmer going to one organisation who would then have to have an individual agreement with you. So going as part of a group, we can have a much greater impact. And also what we're delivering on the land. If we're putting in lots of ponds and scrapes on our land and also the neighbouring farmer is, then we're delivering a much greater impact across the landscape, which would attract a funder.
Another livestock farmer in the hills, Duncan Bennett, has completely changed the way he farms since joining the group and swapping ideas.
I've sort of completely changed my farming system through being through the group. We were in a what's classed as a set stocking system. We now run a rotational grazing system. We were continental cattle at the time. We've changed to native breed Angus, and we're running Welsh mule ewes, and we've changed to easy cares. So we've changed quite a lot, really.
And what difference has that made?
It's made a huge difference to our soil, basically, and also to our profit margin. With the new system, we now we aren't buying any fertiliser, and we aren't spending money on concentrates and veterinary meds as well.
The Shropshire Hills is a national landscape, formerly known as an area of outstanding natural beauty. Kath Landals, a community landscape officer, was responsible for bringing the farmers together.
The farmers that we met all along said, look, we're about producing food. This isn't a rewilding project. We need to produce food, but we need to do it in a way that can also benefit the environment and the landscape. So that was our sort of remit from the very start, really. We got some funding from DEFRA to pay ourselves and the farmers. But what we found was a lot of the farmers wanted to implement some of the recommendations straight away. And that was everything from making changes on the farm, wood pasture, woodlands, natural flood management schemes, a whole host of different things.
Kath's colleague, Alison Jones, is an advisor who visits farmers in the area, helping them to apply for funding.
Our job is to help and support farmers through the application process because they have to follow an application process which is quite specific.
Do you think it's fair to say that a few years ago, hill farmers didn't really have as much access to funding as they do now?
The Farming Protected Landscapes programme has been going since 2021, but prior to that, the schemes were changing, and it looked initially as if the upland farmers were going to lose out a little bit. But that's all changed now, and these programmes are available to all national parks and national landscapes in England, and any farmer or land manager can apply. They're all eligible to apply. Not everything they ask for is eligible, having said that, but if they've got a good idea, then we invite them to come and talk to us about it and then shape that into something that will work for them.
Alison Jones ending that report from Bob Hockenhull. Now, upland areas are known for high rainfall and steep gradients, both key elements for generating hydroelectric power. There are 1,800 hydro schemes in the UK's uplands, producing renewable energy that doesn't rely on fossil fuels. But developers of small-scale hydro energy projects say that the industry is missing out on investment because of a heavy focus on wind and solar. Scotland, in particular, has long been a pioneer of cheap hydroelectricity, but companies say that the current contracts to supply power are squeezing them out of the market. Kevin Keane reports.
It's less than half a square kilometre among peatland high up in the hills above Gairloch. But the waters of Loch Giarnavoch could supply enough electricity to power 4,500 homes. Already a long access road has been constructed up to where the dam would be built, but Tony Ramage from the developer Foster Turner Hydro says that, so far, is the end of the road.
It was an access track. As part of our planning permission, we had to proceed with that to make sure that we could access up to this top loch down from the main roadside. We're now in a position where, because we don't have price certainty, we've been unable to finish construction, so we've downed tools now for over a year.
How frustrating is that?
Well, very frustrating. We've invested not only time and money, but we've got local people involved from construction, we've got landowner buy-in, and we're all ready to go, but without the price certainty it's just not viable as it stands.
The way these schemes sell their electricity has changed. This operational hydro generator at Loch Garvick close by was built under a mechanism now phased out. It's been replaced with a competitive auction where hydro bids against wind and solar, which are much cheaper and almost impossible to beat. Kate Gill-Martin from the British Hydropower Association says that's not fair.
Hydropower is a winter generator, and obviously it happens. Two-thirds of generation is across the winter period. So why are we competing against something that we're actually complementary to? And we're making this point to government to say, actually, solar is cheap, and that's great. We need lots of that, but we also need winter generation, and we need to have the stability of hydropower, which gives us things like inertia on our network, and we need to have a wide mix of renewable technologies.
1,300 feet above sea level, it impounds a head of water to power the turbines.
Scotland has a long history of hydro, which was accelerated after the Second World War. Here, in 1965, the opening by the Queen of the Cruachan pumped hydropower station, built inside a mountain on Loch Awe, was hailed as an engineering masterpiece. There are about 1,800 hydroelectric schemes like this one right across the UK, about 80% of them here in Scotland. And on a wet day like this, you can see why the experts say there's so much potential for many more. The industry says ring-fenced funding for small-scale hydro would help. That already happens for wave and tidal power. The UK government says it'll make a decision on pots of funding before the next auction round in about 6 weeks' time.
That's Kevin Keane, and we're out with farmers in the Lake District's Borrowdale Valley tomorrow for the final part in our week of reports on the UK's uplands. Now, food safety, animal welfare and hygiene are, as you would expect, at the very top of the agenda for the abattoirs that process our meat. The Food Standards Agency is the government body that's responsible for ensuring regulations are being followed, and abattoirs have to pay a fee for that service. But a judgement from the High Court yesterday ruled that the FSA has been charging too much and that it wasn't transparent enough about what it was charging for. The ruling comes after a 24% increase in the FSA's charges to abattoirs and a High Court legal challenge by AIMS, the Association of Independent Meat Suppliers. The National Farmers Union, who backed the challenge, describes the ruling as a huge victory for all abattoirs, particularly small and medium-sized businesses and the farmers that supply them. Peter Hewson is the veterinary director of AIMS.
Food Standards Agency is responsible for carrying out official controls at slaughterhouses. So every animal is inspected by a vet before it's slaughtered. Every carcass is inspected by a vet or a meat inspector after it's slaughtered. And the vet also checks on the general hygiene of the premises. The legislation that governs charging for carrying out those duties allows or requires the FSA to charge a certain amount, but the legislation actually restricts those charges to being those incurred by the inspector in exercising controls.
So they've been charging operators more than they should have been then, is that right?
That's right. For instance, they've been charging FSA management charges over the inspectors, contractor management charging over the inspectors, but now the judge has very helpfully said that neither of those two arms of management can be charged for.
And how much has this been costing meat processors?
So the total cost is about 64 million in England and Wales. And we would suggest that it could well be that half of that is unlawful.
We've reported many times on the difficulties that smaller abattoirs have in footing the bill for official inspections and how several of them have just gone to the wall. What difference will this judgment make in helping them remain in business?
Well, it should help them because it will reduce their costs of inspection, which slaughterhouses operate on a very tight margin. And the small, medium size are very important to the local rural economy because there animals can be taken in by farmers and be slaughtered, be taken home, be sold in farm shops. Local people can buy local meat because there's a slaughterhouse in their vicinity which can provide the meat for them. These slaughterhouses also do quite a lot of exporting, the medium-sized slaughterhouse. So if some of those close, then animals' welfare suffers because they have to travel further, and consumers suffer because they cannot buy locally sourced meat.
The Food Standards Agency says that they are disappointed with the ruling and that they acted in good faith in calculating charge rates and in presenting the information that they publish about them, and they're seeking leave to appeal the judgment. Do you think you might be in for a long battle here?
Well, my reading of the judgment is that it's very clear and very well argued, and I don't see a great deal of scope for appeal, quite honestly.
What's going to happen next? Any idea?
It's very much up in the air. We're extremely pleased with the ruling, the very clear ruling of the judge. What happens next is a little bit in the air because the judge has not yet made an order as to how the FSA should implement her ruling. But the FSA have said that they accept that the charges for last year should be quashed. So we're looking very hopeful that slaughterhouses will be receiving quite a lot of money back.
Peter Hewson from the Association of Independent Meat Suppliers. We contacted the Food Standards Agency for their response, and in a statement, Katie Pettifer, their CEO, told us, "We have carefully considered the court's judgment in the judicial review brought by AIMS regarding our meat inspection charges. While a majority of our charges will not be in dispute, the ruling does create some uncertainty over some elements. We know businesses will want clarity on what this will ultimately mean in practice, and we will provide further information as quickly as the legal process allows." And that is all we've got time for this morning. I'm Kaz Graham, the producer is Beatrice Fenton, and Farming Today is a BBC Audio Bristol production.